This video is sponsored by, well, me and my new short film based on a true nightmare. Stay tuned at the end for more details. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel, and today we are reviewing Black Phone 2, directed by Scott Derrickson, starring Mason Thames, Madeleine McGraw, Miguel Mora, Demián, Bichir, Arianna, Rivas, Jeremy Davies, and of course Ethan Hawke as the grabber. This movie picks up a few years after the events of the first film, as Gwen's dreams of mysterious deaths at a winter camp draw her and FINNEY to once again confront the grabber, who has become more powerful in death. And I'll of course be getting to spoilers for Black Phone 2, so if you haven't had a chance to watch it just yet, definitely go check it out in theaters, as the filmmakers truly strive to make something wholly unique from the first. And for those who have already watched the film, let's get into it.
What do you think happens when you die in a dream? It's time to find out.
When I heard they were making a sequel to The Black Phone, I was more than skeptical, to say the least. I loved the grounded realism of the first film, and while it did have one foot firmly in the supernatural, the story felt entirely resolved in a satisfying manner. And when it comes to this sequel, Scott Derrickson and his writing partner C. Robert Cargill flipped the script with a story entirely steeped in the supernatural with one foot still in grounded realism. And as soon as that first trailer for this film came out and it became clear that they were going full Nightmare on Elm Street with the grabber, I was so on board for this movie, and that is by far the best parts of this film. They strive to make this sequel bigger and better than the first, and I think they succeeded with just that on the horror side of things. Cinematographer Per M. Ekberg used Super 8 film for all the dream sequences in this film, and it not only adds a visual indicator to these dreams, but also adds a similar sense of stylistic terror that Derrickson used in both Sinister and his Dream Kill short in VHS 85, which, if you have not seen that short, definitely seek it out. It is so good. The film grain draws you in as your eyes dart across every frame, the shadows feel alive, and the editing within these sequences utilize the visuals of the film burning in very effective ways. And with the grabber only seen within this dream world, his character goes from true crime serial killer to a more mythological urban legend of sorts. And similar to the best kill sequences in the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, the creativity used to showcase how Gwen's dreams affect the real world is incredibly fun to watch. And speaking of Gwen, this movie is hers from start to finish. A grounded story is very fitting for Mason Thames' FINNEY, as his connection to the paranormal is contained solely through the dead communicating to him through the Black Phone. This in turn makes a more supernatural story extremely fitting for Madeleine McGraw's Gwen, whose dreams were key in finding the location of the grabber's home in that first film. Rather than FINNEY's kidnapping being the inciting incident, it's the mystery of Gwen's dreams of seeing these campers being killed at a winter camp in the Rocky Mountains that jumpstart this story. And I really dug the mystery within this film. The first hour of this film has a lot to set up. We need to establish where our characters are at after 3 years have passed since the events of the first film. FINNEY has risen to the same status that Robin had as the tough fighter of the school. His status of taking down the grabber has got him a lot of attention, but he uses this status to fuel his anger to mask the trauma that he had suffered through. He smokes to fade away his darker thoughts, and he punches his way through his feelings, not too unlike his own father. Jeremy Davies of Lost fame also returns as their father, who has since become sober since FINNEY was rescued. It very much seems like things are better in their home lives. He's no longer abusive, but the history of what he had done is very much still in the subtext. He still pushes Gwen to ignore her dreams and still promotes the idea of repressing their past traumas, so in some ways things are fairly similar to how they were in the beginning of the first film. And of course, Gwen is largely the same foul-mouthed, witty young sister to FINNEY, who is coming of age in this film. In her attempts to come into her own, she begins dating Robin's younger brother Ernesto, as he is the only one, even within her own family, who will listen to her about her psychic abilities that are growing too strong to ignore. She knows that her dreams have a connection to this winter camp that her mother Hope used to go to, and these missing kids are leading her to the grabber's old basement where FINNEY was held captive. All this leads to the discovery that the grabber is much more connected to her and her family's history than I ever really expected, and I really liked all these connections that were made. His first few victims were at the Alpine Lake camp where he worked, which coincidentally was the same camp that Hope was a counselor at. The bodies of these first 3 victims were never found, which explained why they are calling out to her within her own dreams. Years later, the grabber once again became active by kidnapping kids in northern Denver. We knew that Hope had passed down her psychic abilities to both FINNEY and Gwen, but we were led to believe that she was driven mad by them before taking her own life. But this film reveals that she discovered where the grabber was keeping his victims, but was caught by him before she could really, get him in trouble for it all. Which makes the big reveal of this film being that the grabber was actually the person who killed their mother before the events of that first film, which makes it all the more poetic that FINNEY was the one to take him down in life. But as we know, spirits in this world linger after death, so it's only fitting that the grabbers would as well. So in a lot of ways, this film acts as both sequel and prequel to that first film. We get an origin story and backstory revolving around the grabber and hope. It builds on the mythology of the grabber that goes beyond life and into death, making his legend one of nightmares. And we also get to see his attempts at getting revenge by tormenting Gwen within her dreams as an attempt to get back at FINNEY. And yes, this is a lot of new information. Where the first film is much simpler in its plotting, this one does feel a bit crowded with its ideas. Don't get me wrong, all these ideas do make complete sense and work largely within this film, but the first film didn't need large exposition scenes where we are told the vast histories of every character. It was able to build out the world without sitting you down and telling you what it is. Whenever I rewatch a movie, I generally tend to like it more on rewatch, and I think that will still be the case with this one, but I do fear that a rewatch for this film might feel a little bit more grating than usual, as the first half is dedicated solely to establishing all this information before we can get truly into the fun stuff with the grabber and Gwen duking it out in the dreamscape. Hell, I don't even think Ethan Hawke even shows up until an hour into this film, but once you do get there, it's a ton of fun and it starts at a very heightened level. Gwen is being thrown around rooms by an invisible Ethan Hawke like it's the most recent Conjuring film, and all these secondary characters introduced in this film need to get on board without a second thought. I did very much like Demián Bichir as Armando, the owner of the camp who has spent decades searching for the bodies of these first few victims without any luck. Arianna Rivas' Mustang didn't get nearly enough screen time for me to fully get on board with her contributions to this film, but overall I think her performance here was fine, and the other counselors, Barbara and Kenneth, were just awful. Not performance-wise, they did good, but for anyone accusing this movie of being Christian propaganda, which I have seen on Letterboxd, which to be fair, those posts are pretty funny, I do disagree because what these characters represent is exactly what Christian propaganda is in our real world. And this movie definitely does not shy away from calling them out for just that. But with this larger cast of characters, I was kind of hoping that we'd get a little bit more bloodshed in this movie because I don't think anyone really dies inside of this film. Armando has a very close call in one of my favorite sequences inside of this film. After the grabber takes Gwen on a journey through her mother's past, she gets locked in a phone booth on the ice as she is forced to watch him hold Armando under the freezing water. You also get that sick visual from the trailer of Gwen spinning in the phone booth as her real world self flips in the air, spraying blood everywhere. More testament to the sick dreamlike visuals this movie provides. But surprisingly, Armando survives this encounter, and I kind of wish he didn't. Not because I wanted his character to die, but because I think it would have raised this film's stakes even higher than it already was at this point in the story. Even Barbara and Kenneth survive being slammed into the ice face first and being dragged across the lake by an ice skating Ethan Hawke. Their heads are gashed open at one point, but I'm pretty sure they survived. Honestly, I don't fully remember ever seeing them again after this point, so they might have been, standing there at the end of the film as survivors at the end of the film as FINNEY, Gwen, and their father left the camp, but I also didn't really care to look for them, so I don't think the filmmakers really cared whether or not those characters lived or died, so maybe they did, maybe they didn't. The film didn't make a good point as to showing them die, so it felt like nobody died within this movie. I'll also say that Ethan Hawke doesn't quite get as much to play with this time around. They say after his death, the worst parts of him were dragged into hell, and that is what remains, only the evil, spiteful spirit of a killer with no remorse whatsoever. But some of the fun inside of that first one was seeing an almost split-minded character who was not only all of those things I just mentioned, but was also kind of morally complex. The different mask assortments in that first one gave him so much more emotions to play off of, but here, it just comes across as all the same throughout the story. But all that being said, I still loved watching him take on our characters at the end of the film, and his look here was really cool to see his body kind of, torn apart a bit, his skin being torn off when he rips off his mask. All that stuff was really cool to see visually, and watching Gwen attempt to find the bodies underwater as the grabber attacked all of our other characters above the ice was a ton of fun. FINNEY once again gets to be the one to kill this spiritual version of the grabber as he slams the invisible figure into the ice. Extremely satisfying to watch. So overall, I had a ton of fun with Black Phone 2. Derrickson and Cargill upped up the scares and creativity in this one. Some of the emotionality between our core three characters of FINNEY, Gwen, and their father felt a bit cheesy here, not too unlike the emotionality in the first film, but something about it felt a little less genuine in this one, maybe because it felt so much more fantastical and supernatural than it did feel grounded inside of the first one. But the performers here all did a great job bringing these characters back to the big screen. And one last note that I absolutely have to praise in this movie is the musical musical score inside of this film. Like, why does Tron get all the hype around his score when this film absolutely blows it out of the water? Bravo to Atticus Derrickson, who composed the score here. This is the type of nepotism we like to see, I guess. I don't know. I've been literally refreshing the music apps, just waiting for them to drop this music. I just need it immediately. It is so good.
Vengeance is mine.
But those are just going to be my thoughts on Black Phone 2. Definitely let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you prefer the more grounded realism of the first film like I do, or are you all in on the supernatural elements that they brought on for this sequel? And would you like a third film to continue on this story? They don't really set up for a third film, but I do think that there is potential to bring this world to another film to wrap this up in a trilogy, although it is very much not needed. And of course, if you did enjoy this review, make sure to leave it a like and subscribe to the channel to see more videos just like this. Like I mentioned at the top of the review, I am sponsoring myself for this video with my new short film based on a true nightmare. I filmed it at the beginning of the month with a group of friends, and I had a ton of fun making it. And although I can't wait to show it off to all of you, it isn't quite ready just yet. However, I did cut together a little trailer for you all to watch, so thanks everybody for watching. Thanks everybody for supporting my channel to make this all possible in the first place, and I hope to see you all in my next one. Please enjoy the teaser for Based on a True Nightmare.
It has been a month since the true crime phenomenon has taken the world by storm. The Todd Creek killer has claimed many victims on his treks through the western United States, but it was the discovery of a lone survivor that has captivated millions. Many are now turning to this lone survivor for the answers to the questions on everyone's minds. How did he get away? What could he have seen? Could he have...
Huge fan, by the way. Well, fan's probably not the right word to use.